Welcome back and Eid Mubarak everyone. Channel 4 news presenter Krishnan Guru-Murthy discusses Gaza, Palestine, Trump's plan and ceasefire with Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister. You might be asking, finally we have someone up in the hierarchy of the Israeli government to answer some important questions. Unfortunately, the outcome was exactly the same as every other Israeli official when asked some pretty basic questions. Shouting doesn't necessarily mean you're right. In this case, she makes an absolute fool of herself, and at one point I thought she almost popped an artery. Let's take a look.
That's the problem you're in right now, isn't it? When it comes to these negotiations, Hamas is holding on to its hostages as bargaining chips, and you are offering them nothing, no reason to hand them over, because you're not offering them any kind of say in the future.
Look, Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's a death cult. It didn't just destroy Israeli community, but it destroys everyday Palestinian communities. And when you're dealing, and you know, maybe you have more military experience, maybe you have more a military strategy on how to fight terrorist organizations and radicals, maybe you should come and advise the Israeli military, you know?
I'm just asking you to address that point. Why do you think Hamas will hand over the hostages?
I actually saw what is the result of those monsters. I've seen it.
And I want to ask you about that, if we can get beyond this.
I want to tell you this, okay? If that doesn't happen, if I don't disarm Hamas, then maybe in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm not going to have 250 family members being held in those dungeons of torture. I can have 500, 800, 1,000. And this is something that my people, a problem that I don't want my daughters to actually face in the future. And I don't think you get that.
I guarantee Krishnan would do a better job than any of the ridiculous Israeli officials we've seen over the last 18 months. Officials who can't string a sentence, nor can they answer any questions, nor can they talk without almost killing themselves with anger. She does not answer the question, which is a very good question to be fair. She then mentions, and I quote, "I saw it firsthand," but then fails to explain what exactly she saw. What was the point in bringing it up? She then talks about her daughters. What about the daughters you slaughtered in Palestine? What about them? What about the millions you kept in an open prison concentration camp? You cannot equate 250 hostages with 70 plus thousands dead, with many, many more thousands under the rubble.
I don't think you really understand what's the true nature of those radicals, of those jihadists, if you continue to actually, you know, defend them.
No, I'm not defending anyone, Sharon. Don't put any words in my mouth. I'm asking you.
But you
I'm
do.
asking you. No, I'm not. I'm not, and it's very important you accept
some
that.
Of their propaganda.
But, no, I'm not propagating any propaganda. I'm asking you questions, Sharon, and you can turn this around into your talking points, but you've got to address my questions. My question is,
I am addressing
no, you're not.
Questions.
No, you're not. You're just attacking.
I don't think
you are just attacking. No, you're just attacking, and that you know we've got to try and get beyond that, because what I'm trying to ask you is why you think Hamas will hand over the hostages if your stated position is still that you want to destroy them?
Well, the fact is that if we put military pressure and international pressure, that's pressure Hamas in handing out our family members. That's the fact. That's what worked until now and nothing else. Okay? The fact is when we reduced the amount of the maneuvering of our operations in Gaza, and we went into a quiet ceasefire, not a single Hamas official even went around the negotiation table. They didn't want to hear about it. It was only when we started resuming military operation, and only when the international community, through Trump, actually put the right pressure on Hamas, that's when they caved in, and they actually even started sending the delegation to Doha to start these negotiations.
Attack is the only thing the Zionists understand. She then talks about a quiet ceasefire, a ceasefire in which 150 Palestinians were killed, and then she expects Hamas to turn up to discuss negotiations. The ceasefire alone is evidence of how day-to-day life was in Palestine prior to October the 7th. This woman talks out of a rucksack. Let's carry on.
Jonathan Whittle, who is the head of OCHA in Palestine, said 7 days ago, civil defense and PRCS ambulances arrived at the scene of Israeli attacks. One by one, they were hit, they were struck, their bodies were gathered and buried in a mass grave. And now,
So the first
that's
thing
not
I would
Hamas.
say, I would ask you who actually investigated this event. And I would tell you, most likely it is Hamas, because OCHA won't be on the ground investigating it. So when they get their information from Hamas, a death cult terrorist organization, as I said before, I won't take it just with a grain of salt. I would take it with a shovel of salt. I would wait until Israel actually investigate to check what had actually happened, because in most of these cases where it's pure Hamas propaganda, afterwards the finding are actually that some of them were committed by Hamas, some of them were committed by other terrorist organizations, and so the fact that reliable,
Tripping over her own words. She doesn't even know what she's yapping about. Don't get it twisted, guys. This is a very clever and dangerous strategy played here by Israel. Why is it, do you think, they don't allow journalists? Well, the reason is because they can make this exact claim. When they massacre a group of people, they think they can argue this by saying, well, they can't verify this because they weren't on the ground. They thought they fooled the world once. It doesn't work anymore, and we aren't the mugs you think we are.
The trouble is the IDF has done this before, as you say, in the World Central Kitchen case. There have been lots of cases in which the IDF kills people who are clearly not legitimate targets. And who is being held responsible for these? Who's being held accountable?
No,
Has there been a prosecution over any of these?
Look, this is absolutely absurd. And your accusations are actually going hand in hand with Hamas propaganda. And I'll tell you what.
It's just a fact, isn't it? You quoted it yourself.
The World Central Kitchen tragedy was a tragedy. It was investigated thoroughly. And you know what else? Australia, the Australian foreign minister, has actually sent a military representative into Israel to investigate in depth that particular incident. Okay, what did they discover? And did you read the report that they actually pulled out? They stated clearly, not an Israeli investigation, but an independent Australian investigation who went in to the heart of the military to watch live footage, unedited footage, to actually make their conclusion. And their conclusion was very clear that that was a mistake. It was unintentionally.
Let me get this straight here. So an independent Australian official went into Israel to watch unedited footage of the scene. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why couldn't he just watch the footage from the comfort of his own home? What did he see? What exactly did he see? Footage of a missile hitting civilians? Seriously, it seems like the higher up we go on the Israeli hierarchy, the lower the IQ seems to get. So there you have it, guys. That was Israel's deputy foreign minister, somebody who we thought could answer some pretty basic questions. Instead, she almost gave herself a seizure. Again, a prime example of an Israeli official unable to answer the question and unable to hold a conversation. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Support me by liking and subscribing. Become a channel member, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.